aliens were warned, there's something unique about human ships. HFY story. The Galactic Council had convened in secret for weeks, their discussions veiled by an air of cautious suspicion. A new species had emerged, one that was rapidly expanding across the stars. They called themselves humans, a small, seemingly insignificant race from a backwater planet named Earth. But the data was clear. Humans were unlike any species the galaxy had ever encountered, and there was something uniquely dangerous about their ships. The Council's archives were filled with the accounts of races who had risen and fallen over the eons, but none had shown the peculiar trait that humans possessed: resilience. The species seemed to thrive under the most extreme conditions, and their ships were like no other. Zora, an ancient and revered member of the Council, leaned forward as the holographic map of the human galaxy glowed before her. Her voice was low, yet filled with the weight of experience. We have watched their rise. At first, they were primitive, barely able to leave their own world. But in just a few centuries, they've gone from building wooden ships to mastering space travel. How is this possible? Zora's gaze hardened. Their ships are unusual. Krex, the skeptical representative from the Valtor, a species of hyper-intelligent beings, tapped his claws nervously. There are reports that their ships can survive longer than any other, even in the most hostile environments. That's just their ships. The humans themselves, there's no consistency in their biological makeup. They should have perished on countless occasions. A murmur swept through the Council. The humans, though not particularly advanced in the traditional sense, had an uncanny ability to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Their ships, while crude by some standards, had survived situations that would have annihilated the fleets of other races. Zora straightened. We need to acknowledge what the humans are capable of. They don't just survive, they adapt. Their ships, it is as if they willingly push their limits. Their greatest strength is not in their technology, but in their sheer determination to thrive no matter the cost. The holodisplay shifted, showing the wreckage of a Valtor fleet that had attempted to conquer Earth centuries ago. The humans had fought back with nothing more than rudimentary technology, yet they had made the invaders bleed, forcing them to retreat in disgrace. We were warned, said Draeger, the Illyrian emissary. His tone was grave. Our scouts reported that human vessels, when faced with defeat, don't give up. They evolve their tactics on the fly. They are relentless. I've seen a human ship take on a vastly superior fleet and emerge victorious, using nothing but cunning and unpredictability. And when all seems lost, when their hulls are cracked and their engines sputtering, humanity finds a way to turn the tide. It is as though their ships carry the spirit of their people inside them. The Council fell silent as the weight of Draeger's words hung in the air. Krex spoke again, his voice tinged with uncertainty. But their numbers are still small. Even with this resilience, surely they can't take on a fleet of our size? Even with their unique ships, they can't. Zora interrupted, her voice like ice. You still don't understand. Their ships may not be the most advanced, but they are forged in the crucible of human will. It's not the design of the ships that makes them formidable. It's the pilots. Each human ship is an extension of its crew, and each human is a soldier at heart. They will fight until the last one is standing, and they will never surrender, no matter the cost. The hologram shifted again, showing footage of a recent human assault on an alien colony. The attack had been sudden, reckless, and brutal. The human ships, though outnumbered, had breached the enemy defenses with shocking precision, overwhelming even the most advanced weaponry with pure ferocity. Despite losing almost half their fleet, the humans had won, leaving the alien invaders in retreat. There is something unique about the human spirit, Zora said softly, and it's carried in their ships. They are not afraid of death. They do not fear destruction. When you face a human ship, you are not fighting technology. You are fighting a species that has learned, through hardship and struggle, that they can survive anything. Krex finally seemed to grasp the depth of the situation. You mean they will continue to evolve, continue to adapt? Their ships will continue to grow stronger, and as they grow stronger, so will they. Zora nodded solemnly. Yes, the humans are like a virus, unpredictable, uncontainable. Every defeat only serves to make them more dangerous. The longer we wait to act, the harder it will be to stop them. The council fell into a deeper silence. There was no denying the truth of Zora's words. The humans, with their indomitable will and relentless drive, were a force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. And it was too late to stop them now. On Earth, aboard a battered but ever-proud human warship, Captain Rachel Carter stared out at the stars. The ship was barely holding together after the recent skirmish, the hull scratched and dented, its systems flickering with the strain of battle. But the crew? The crew was alive, and that was all that mattered. She gripped the console tightly, a determined smile tugging at her lips. "We'll be ready for them," she muttered, her voice filled with conviction. "We'll always be ready." Aliens were warned, there's something unique about human ships. HFY Story, Part 2. As the Council mulled over their findings, across the galaxy, human ships continued to forge their path forward. Captain Rachel Carter wasn't alone in her determination. Across Earth's spacefaring fleet, every commander, every pilot, every crew member knew one unshakable truth: humanity's strength was not just in their ships, it was in their unity, in their refusal to be broken. The United Earth Federation had become a formidable force, not through sheer numbers or overwhelming firepower, but through a combination of ingenuity, resourcefulness, and, most of all, unyielding will. And it was these human traits that made their ships so unique. Rachel's ship, Resolute, was an older model, retrofitted with salvaged alien technology and countless modifications that had been added over the years. It wasn't pretty, nor was it efficient by any standard, yet it had survived attacks by far superior fleets, with its crew pushing it past its limits time and again. Every inch of Resolute was a testament to human ingenuity. On the bridge, Rachel was deep in thought. She'd just received a coded transmission from Earth Command. It was an encrypted warning, a call to arms. The Valtor had finally rallied enough ships to mount a serious invasion. Earth was their next target. Her fingers hovered over the command console as she weighed her options. Her ship's sensors flickered, and the familiar hum of the engines provided a small comfort, though she knew it would take everything they had to survive the coming onslaught. She had no illusions about what was to come. A direct confrontation with the Valtor would be a suicide mission for most species. But humans? They had something different, an unyielding drive, a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. "We'll turn the tide, just like we always do," she muttered to herself, then spoke aloud to her crew. "Prepare the ship. Let's show them what a human ship can do." Meanwhile, on the Valtor flagship, the commanders of the invasion fleet prepared to launch. They were confident. After all, they had witnessed the human ships firsthand and knew the odds were stacked in their favor. But none of them understood the one thing that would be their downfall: the humans' ability to fight back from impossible odds. Commander Relar, the Valtor fleet's leader, paced the bridge of his massive warship. His species had conquered countless worlds. They had crushed races far more powerful than the humans. Yet, when it came to Earth, something always seemed to go wrong. "We've dealt with them before," Relar grumbled, "and yet, they never fail to surprise us. They fight like nothing I've ever seen. Every victory, every retreat, it's all part of their plan. They adapt." His second-in-command, Gall, raised an eyebrow. "You believe that their ships are alive?" Relar hesitated, tapping a long claw against the metallic surface of his console. "I don't know, but there's something about them, something that we can't seem to quantify. It's as if the humans will their ships to fight. They don't just fly their ships, they become their ships. Every crew member is a part of the ship, and every part of the ship is a part of the crew." Gall's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that we're facing something beyond technology, beyond strategy?" Relar's expression darkened. "Yes, it's not their tech that makes them dangerous, it's their will. We have underestimated them before, and we will do so again at our peril." Back on Earth, the stage was set for the battle of a lifetime. The Valtor fleet was massive, their ships bristling with advanced weaponry. They had every advantage: superior numbers, advanced weapons, and a strategic plan decades in the making. Yet, as the human fleet gathered in Earth's orbit, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest weapon wasn't their ships or their tech, it was something else. It was their spirit. The Federation ships, though smaller and less advanced, were spread out in a tight formation. Resolute was at the heart of it, a symbol of humanity's resilience. With each ship that joined the formation, Rachel could feel the intensity of the crew's focus. Everyone knew what was at stake. She looked over at her tactical officer, Lieutenant Brad Miller. He was scanning the incoming Valtor ships with cold precision. "They're coming in fast, Captain," he said, "but they're not expecting us to fight back the way we will. Their sensors are focused on our larger fleet. They're underestimating us again." Rachel nodded, her hands steady as she made the final adjustments to the ship's systems. "Let them underestimate us. Let them think we're just another species to crush. We'll show them what happens when you make that mistake." The battle began as the Valtor fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, their ships cutting through the darkness of space like a storm. But the humans were ready. As the first wave of Valtor ships approached, the Resolute and its fleet of ragtag ships darted into action, exploiting every weakness in the Valtor formation. Rachel's voice rang out over the intercom. "This is our home. Protect it with everything you have." The human ships didn't wait for orders. They charged headfirst, unleashing everything they had. The Resolute fired its pulse cannons, narrowly dodging enemy fire. The other ships, though outgunned, fought with an intensity that could only come from the desperation of knowing they had no choice but to win. It was chaos, but in the chaos, the humans thrived. As the Valtor fleet engaged the smaller ships, their commanders began to realize the mistake they had made. The human ships were relentless. They didn't fight with logic alone. They fought with instinct, with an unspoken understanding between crew and ship. The Valtor ships, though technologically superior, were slow to adapt. They couldn't keep up with the human strategy because the humans didn't need a plan. They became the plan. After hours of fierce combat, the Valtor fleet began to falter. Their ships, one by one, fell under the relentless assault of human ingenuity and willpower. The Resolute tore through enemy lines, its hull battered but still intact, its crew driving it forward with everything they had. And then, in the midst of the final push, the Valtor flagship took a hit, a critical strike that sent it spiraling into the void. The invasion was over. The human fleet had won. Back on Earth, as the survivors of the battle surveyed the wreckage of the Valtor fleet, Rachel stood at the helm of the Resolute, gazing out at the stars. Her ship was damaged, but it had survived, and so had her people. The message had been sent to the galaxy: humanity was not to be underestimated. As long as there were humans alive, their ships would continue to fight, because there was something unique about human ships, something that no alien species could replicate or defeat. It wasn't technology, it wasn't firepower, it was something deeper. It was humanity's will. Aliens were warned, there's something unique about human ships. HFY Story, Part 3. The aftermath of the Valtor defeat sent ripples across the galaxy. The unexpected victory of the human fleet, small in number but immense in spirit, had stunned the galactic powers. News of Earth's resilience spread faster than any fleet could travel, and whispers of the humans' uncanny ability to adapt and overcome even the most advanced forces filled the halls of every alien government and council. But none were more affected by this than the Zakar, an ancient and militaristic race known for their ruthlessness in battle. They had been watching Earth closely ever since the Valtor's defeat. They had, in fact, observed the entire battle, studying every move, every tactic. On Zakar Prime, in the heart of their war-hardened empire, High General Kor stood before a massive map of the galaxy. His face, a mask of alien steel, betrayed no emotion as he viewed the growing threat that was humanity. His war council sat around him, silent as he analyzed the data. "The humans, their ships, they are more than mere technology," Kor murmured. "We must stop them before they become a true threat." The Zakar had never known fear. They had dominated every species they encountered with precision, military might, and an ironclad will. But the humans were different. They didn't crumble in the face of superior technology. They didn't back down from impossible odds. They adapted. Kor turned to his most trusted advisor, a tactical genius named Tereth. "What do you propose? How do we deal with this human anomaly?" Tereth's eyes narrowed as he considered. "We must approach them as we would any other enemy. Overwhelm them. Strike them at their weakest points. They can't adapt if they don't survive the first blow." The High General's cold eyes flicked back to the holographic map, which now displayed the Earth's system in clear detail. "Their fleets are small, their technology primitive compared to ours, but the humans fight like cornered predators. They don't simply defend, they hunt. They will learn from us, and we will be forced to face them on their own terms. The room grew tense as Kor made his decision. We will strike fast. We will overwhelm Earth before their defenses have time to regroup. We cannot allow them the time to evolve again. But deep in the hearts of the galactic powers, another question lingered. Could the Zakar even succeed where the Valtor had failed? Back on Earth, Rachel Carter and her crew had returned to their home planet. Battered but proud, the Resolute had barely made it back to Earth's atmosphere, but it was still intact, just like the crew that flew it. The Federation had won a significant victory, but they knew that it would only be a matter of time before the next battle came. A few days after their return, Earth Command convened an emergency meeting in the massive underground war room. All the commanders and key personnel of the Federation were present, including Rachel. The large holographic display flickered to life, showing the projected trajectory of the approaching Zakar fleet. It was a massive armada, far larger than any human force, and it was heading straight for Earth. Admiral Halston, the grizzled veteran in charge of Earth Command, looked grim as he addressed the assembled officers. The Zakar are coming, and they will not be as lenient as the Valtor. This will be a fight for our survival. We must prepare ourselves for the worst. Rachel stood at attention, her face hardening as she absorbed the news. The Zakar were notorious for their efficiency and deadly precision. They would not waste time or resources in a prolonged conflict. This would be a brutal, unforgiving assault. But Rachel knew something the Admiral didn't, something the Zakar didn't understand. Human ships might not have the same firepower or technology as the Zakar's warships, but they had something that no alien fleet could replicate. Adaptation. Admiral, Rachel said, stepping forward, we don't have to beat them at their own game. We just need to outlast them. We need to show them the one thing they haven't learned about us yet. And what is that? Halston asked, skeptical. Rachel's eyes met his with an unwavering conviction. We will fight with everything we have, but more importantly, we will adapt as we fight. We don't just survive, we evolve. They won't be able to anticipate what we'll do next. We'll give them the fight of their lives, and when they think they've won, we'll be waiting for them to make the mistake we've already planned for. The room fell silent. It was a gamble, but it was the only option they had. The humans had survived countless battles by adapting, by learning from their mistakes. Now, they would need to do it once more. The Zakar fleet arrived in Earth's orbit with the speed and precision of a predator on the hunt. Their ships, sleek and deadly, moved like a tidal wave against the small human fleet. The odds were overwhelmingly in their favor. It seemed like an impossible battle, but the humans were not about to surrender. Rachel stood on the bridge of the Resolute, feeling the familiar weight of her responsibility. She could sense the tension in the air as the Zakar ships closed in. Her crew was ready, their resolve firm. Let's give them everything we've got, she said, her voice calm but fierce. And then, the battle began. The Zakar ships launched their initial wave, advanced weaponry lighting up the dark expanse of space. But the human ships were already on the move, scattering and breaking formation, moving unpredictably. The Zakar, relying on their precision and brute force, tried to predict the humans' movements, but they couldn't keep up. The Resolute darted in and out of the enemy lines, firing off critical shots, exploiting every weakness. Other human ships followed suit, using the environment of space itself to their advantage, dodge, weave, counterattack. It was chaos, but it was a chaos the humans thrived in. As the battle raged on, the Zakar began to grow frustrated. They couldn't predict the humans' tactics. They couldn't force them into a position where they could deliver a decisive blow. Every time they struck, the humans countered with something new, something they hadn't expected. Rachel smiled grimly. The Zakar were learning what every alien species had learned the hard way. Humans weren't just survivors, they were warriors. The fight would go on for hours, maybe days, but Rachel knew that in the end, the Zakar would make the same mistake the others had. They would underestimate humanity's ability to adapt. They would underestimate the power of the human spirit. And when the dust settled, the Zakar would be the ones retreating, just like the Valtor, just like every other species that had faced humanity's unique brand of resilience. High General Kor watched from his flagship as his forces began to falter. His warships, though superior in firepower, were losing ground. He could feel it. The humans were evolving mid-battle. Every time the Zakar adjusted, The humans adjusted right alongside them. It was maddening. They adapt faster than we can think. Kor hissed, his rage bubbling to the surface. This is impossible. The message was clear, humanity would not be stopped. And for the first time in the history of the Zakar, the galaxy's greatest warriors faced a force they could not conquer. The humans were no longer a nuisance. They were a problem. And the Zakar weren't sure they could solve it. The fight was far from over, but Earth had sent a message across the stars. Human ships weren't just built to fight, they were built to win. Aliens were warned, there's something unique about human ships. HFY Story, Part 4. The Zakar fleet, despite their overwhelming technological superiority, was reeling. General Kor had watched as his ships were repeatedly forced to adapt on the fly, something that went against the very core of Zakar military doctrine. The human fleet was unpredictable, each ship a microcosm of humanity's resolve, and the Zakar were beginning to realize that this wasn't just another war, they were facing an existential threat. General Kor stood in front of the war room's holotable, staring at the shattered remnants of his fleet scattered across the stars. The numbers on the data display were sobering. The Zakar, despite their best efforts, had lost a quarter of their fleet in just a few hours, and it was clear that their momentum was beginning to slip. This wasn't just a battle, it was a war of attrition, and the Zakar were losing. Report, Kor growled, his voice cold but tinged with a rare hint of desperation. A tactical officer responded quickly, General, our forces are being worn down. The human ships, while not as advanced, are exploiting every gap in our defenses. We cannot predict their movements, they are learning faster than we can adjust. The officer paused. It's as though their ships have become extensions of their crews. Their tactics are unorthodox. Every time we think we've trapped them, they find a way to break free. Kor's fists clenched. He had dealt with countless species throughout his long career, crushed their forces with precision, and annihilated entire civilizations. But this was something different, something primal. They must be exterminated, Kor muttered under his breath, but deep down, he knew it wasn't that simple. He had underestimated the humans, just as every other species before him had. Meanwhile, Rachel Carter stood on the Resolute's bridge, her face illuminated by the blinking lights of the tactical display. The battle was escalating, but for the first time, she felt a surge of confidence. The Zakar, though powerful, were showing cracks. They were frustrated, and that was the one thing the humans could always capitalize on, frustration. They're making mistakes, Rachel said aloud, her voice filled with a quiet sense of triumph. They think they've got us figured out, but they don't. Brad Miller, her tactical officer, looked over at her with a knowing grin. Captain, they're definitely not ready for us to turn the tables. We've got them on the back foot. Rachel nodded, her eyes narrowing as she watched the enemy fleet carefully. Keep pushing them. They're on the edge of breaking. We just need one more push. The battle raged on for hours. The two fleets locked in a deadly dance, but as the Zakar began to grow more disorganized, their ships unable to predict the next move of the human fleet, the first cracks in their defenses began to show. One by one, human ships attacked in coordinated strikes, exploiting weaknesses in the Zakar formations. Resolute was the spearhead, darting between Zakar vessels, releasing barrages of firepower that seemed to come from nowhere, striking targets with precise accuracy. It was a signature move, honed from years of humanity's history of guerrilla tactics and asymmetric warfare. Despite the Zakar's superior numbers, it wasn't enough. The human ship's ability to adapt and counterattack was proving to be their greatest strength. As the battle entered its fourth hour, General Kor's patience had finally worn thin. He knew what had to be done. The humans' relentless pursuit of victory, their unwillingness to back down, had to be broken. But the question was, how? The Zakar had fought every war with efficiency and overwhelming strength, but no one had predicted this level of unpredictability from the humans. Kor activated the fleet-wide comms, his voice filled with finality. Initiate Phase B. A series of ominous signals rippled through the Zakar fleet. Phase B was the Zakar's final solution, a tactic they had only used once before, in a battle so catastrophic it was banned by Zakar High Command. But this was different. The humans were too dangerous to allow them to win. Across the battlefield, Zakar ships began to power down their engines and shut down non-essential systems. The remaining ships in the fleet spread out, forming a tight ring. At the center, the largest Zakar warship, the Dreadstorm, fired up its massive core. The Dreadstorm wasn't just another battleship, it was a doomsday weapon. Its core was designed to destabilize the fabric of space itself, creating a shockwave that could obliterate an entire system. Rachel saw the energy surge from the Dreadstorm on her radar, and a cold feeling settled in her stomach. "They're preparing something big," she muttered, eyes locked on the screen. Brad glanced over, his face grim. "That's a Phase B maneuver. They're preparing to collapse the local space-time continuum. If they succeed, it could wipe out everything in this sector." Rachel's mind raced. The humans had always been outmatched by superior firepower, but their greatest strength lay in their ability to survive against the odds. The thought of surrender was never an option. And this time, they couldn't just outrun the storm. They had to stop it. "We're not losing today," Rachel said firmly. "All ships, prepare for a coordinated assault on the Dreadstorm. We're going to hit them where it hurts." In the heart of the Zakar fleet, General Kor watched the human ships make their final approach. The time for hesitation was over. The humans were too close. The Phase B plan would need to be activated now, or the fleet would be lost. He pressed a single button. The Dreadstorm's core detonated with the force of a collapsing star. As the shockwave of energy emanated from the Dreadstorm, Rachel's heart sank. The immense gravitational field started to bend space itself, threatening to tear apart everything in its path. "We've got minutes," Brad said, his voice shaking. "If we don't act now, we're done for." But Rachel wasn't about to give up. There was a chance, a small window of opportunity. The Resolute had been retrofitted with stolen Zakar technology that might give them the edge they needed. If she could time the jump just right, she could send the Resolute through the collapsing space, using the distortion to make a direct strike at the Dreadstorm's core. "Prepare the engines for a gravity-assisted jump," she ordered. "We're going straight for their core, full power, no hesitations." With the energy of the dying star threatening to consume everything in its wake, Resolute shot forward, its hull straining against the tidal forces. The Zakar fleet had no time to react as the human ship defied all logic, thrusting itself into the heart of the storm. As the Resolute plummeted toward the heart of the explosion, the ship's systems strained to the breaking point, every fiber of the crews being screened as the ship dove into the collapse of spacetime. But against all odds, Resolute reached the Dreadstorm, its massive cannon firing directly at the warship's core. With a resounding boom, the Zakar flagship shattered into 1,000 pieces. The shockwave of the explosion rippled through space, and the gravitational anomaly began to stabilize. The battle was over. The Zakar fleet, its heart torn out, was left to drift, defeated. Rachel stood in the command chair of the Resolute, her hands gripping the armrests as the ship steadied itself. The once overwhelming Zakar fleet was now a broken shell. The humans had won once again. But this time, it wasn't just the battle that had been won. It was the beginning of something much larger. Earth had just sent a message to the galaxy. Human ships were not just survivable, they were unstoppable. And the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.